So in my last video, I started to go over some of the procedures, the laws, just showing how I do not believe Blake Lively's motion to dismiss Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against her will fly. And the reason why she even filed this, or her main argument, is that she falls under this California law that protects alleged victims who come out and speak against the or file a complaint against somebody who has sexually harassed them in the workplace, whether it's a person at the job or your actual employer. And so she's seeking legal protection, saying that Justin Baldoni suing her for defamation. Well, she's covered under California law because this is retaliatory. What he's doing is just to retaliate against her making these claims. But we're going to walk through exactly why that is not true. We're also going to walk through what are the procedures of this, as well as SAG-AFTRA, which is the union, the guild for actors, and how she violated their own procedures. Now, in my previous video that's just up on my channel, I go into how Blake Lively never filed a sexual harassment complaint with Sony, with Wayfair, or with anyone. At least she hasn't put those records out there. Okay. So, and Sony said that they never received a complaint. But we do know that it is alleged that she strong-armed Sony into being able to take over this movie by saying, if I don't get my way, essentially, then I'm going to say that I was sexually harassed, basically threatening them, strong-arming them so that she could take over this film, which we know, as she described in her own words, that she does this with malice. She does this deceptively, where she would go in as an actor and pretend like that's all she's going to do, what she was hired to do. But her plan is to have agency, to have control, and to take over all the different parts of the movie and do a rug pull on the director, on the producer, on the people creating the film. She wants to pull the rug from under them. So that right there shows her intentionality and her malice and how she thinks. But I want to look at this because the details, okay, a lot of people say, oh, I'm covered. But you have to look at the details and to see, everyone who, just because she filed the complaint doesn't mean she's covered. And when she didn't allege any of this sexual harassment until December 20th. And then we know that the New York Times came up with their article on December 21st, their article and video. And Megan Twohey, the author of that article, she says as fact that what Blake says, what the details they have is what really happened as a matter of fact. They weren't doing fair reporting at all. And we know the back dates that we have as early as October 30th. We haven't even gotten to discovery to get all the facts of how early they began to work together. Now, I also showed in that video how I believe, I do not have this as fact yet, but this is my theory. And I believe the evidence will show this, that because when she presented all of this to the New York Times, and they said they went over thousands of documents. So this had to be going on for quite some time. But they cherry picked in their article what they were going to use. If they have all these documents and then they say, okay, if this harassment happened, all this stuff you claim, these little text messages or just your feelings, your thoughts, we have all of that. But where is the evidence? There is no evidence. Well, a good piece of evidence would be an HR complaint about sexual harassment. But then she says, well, I don't have one. Okay, how can we remedy this? Because if you're going to make this allegations, if we're going to come out with this article, then we need something, some legal document to back this up. So what does she do? She goes and files this complaint in California. But they come out with the article on the 21st. They do not allow him to respond. They don't give him time to respond. And again, they stated as a matter of fact, especially in the video. But look at this. This is how you know this has no teeth. So it says when someone, and let me see if I can make it bigger. I always like to, okay, yay. This one lets me make it bigger. The complaint process. When someone files a discrimination complaint, CRD evaluates the facts and decides whether to accept the case for investigation. If it accepts the case, CRD independently investigates the facts and the legal issues. This involves reviewing respondents' responses to complaints and other information and evidence that complainants and respondents submit. Among other things, CRD attempts to resolve the dispute in appropriate cases. CRD may also decide to take legal action. Now we're going to get into the details. I want to highlight, as I did in my last video before we keep going, because this is very important. When they file the complaint, the CRD evaluates the facts and decides whether to accept the case for investigation. Do we have any evidence that her case has been accepted? I haven't seen her lawyer say this. I haven't seen any headlines, because I'm thinking if it's accepted, her complaint, well, they're going to use that and weaponize that look, California is investigating it. We have the information. Look, they've accepted. There's enough here in her complaint to accept it. But then they independently investigate the facts and legal issues. They need time to independently investigate this. How can you file your complaint on the 20th and then on the 21st, it goes out for publication to the world, all of these things that you're alleging? And we don't even know if they've accepted it, let alone had the time to investigate. But part of this goes into this. This involves reviewing respondents' responses to complaints and other information and evidence that complainants and respondents submit, among other things. Has Justin Baldoni been given, has he even responded? Is it accepted? Has it been investigated? Has he even responded? He certainly didn't have time to respond by the time it went through to the New York Times and she publicized it. None of this was done. They don't, just because you make a complaint doesn't mean you get to fall under this umbrella. It has to be a real complaint. It has to be factual. It has to be reasonable. It has to be without malice. And I go through in other videos of why she doesn't fit any of those. And especially when she jumped to the New York Times to publicize it before they can do anything and even get a response from him or accept it. And then it says that they will try to resolve it in appropriate cases. Even if they accepted it, even if they investigated, even if he was able to respond, it may not be appropriate for them. It may not fall under their jurisdiction. It may not be appropriate. Let's go some more. All right. And again, I'm going to have to try to make it even bigger now. Woo. Okay, it's huge. So you guys can see it. I may have to, so we don't have that popping up. The first steps. If you believe you were subjected to discrimination, harassment, or retaliation, CRD may be able to investigate, notice, may be able to investigate and help you resolve your complaint. The first step is to submit an intake form using one of the options below. It is important to have the following information to provide to CRD. The specific facts and any records about the incidents, including the names and contact information of the person or entity you believe harmed, who you believe harmed you, if known, copies of any documents and other evidence related to your complaint, and the names and contact information of any witnesses, if known. If you're unable to gather all required information at this time, you can still begin the filing process through CRD's California Rights System, CCRS, and add additional information as you acquire it. The unfiled complaint will remain available in the system for 30 days. This was filed on December 20th. January 20th, or maybe even the 19th, is 30 days. Was when you had the time to gather the facts, when you had the time to present those things. Where is it? Where Did you submit those things? Did you provide proof and documents and all of that? And that this is just for them to accept the case. This is what they're outlining is just filing it. It's just putting it out there so that they can begin the investigation, so they can accept it to investigate. All right. So here's the next thing. In employment cases, you must submit an intake form to CRD within 3 years of the date you were last harmed. So she's taking advantage of this 3-year timeline, saying, "Well, I can file this 3 years later if she could file it 3 years later if she wanted to." But if a person truly was harassed or was discriminated against, well, then they would have 3 years to present that. But that still means they have to provide proof, documents. They have to provide something. You can't just claim it. You do not have to use the CRD investigation process. You can instead file your own lawsuit. However, in employment cases only, you must obtain an immediate right to sue notice from CRD before filing your own lawsuit in court. Now, I had to pause to look at the dates, and I had to ask Grok just so I can make sure I have this timeline correct. Lively's formal lawsuit against Baldoni and Baldoni's lawsuits against Lively in the New York Times both occurred on December 31st, 2024, with Baldoni's filing against the Times coming hours before Lively's federal lawsuit against him. So he did not sue her, okay? He sued the New York Times first on December 31st, right? When you look at this, if we go back to what we were reading here, what does this say? What does this say? She sued him. Okay. She sued her alleged sexual harasser. In employment cases, you must submit an intake form with, okay, we have that. You do not have to use the CRD investigation process. You can instead file your own lawsuit. However, in employment cases only, he was her employer in this movie, the Wayfair Studios. Okay. He was essentially her boss, even though like she took over. Okay. Let's forget about that. But legally, this is what it was. However, in employment cases only, you must obtain an immediate right to sue notice from CRD before filing your own lawsuit in court. Did she get an immediate right to sue notice from CRD? Where is it? You filed the complaint on the 20th. New York Times goes out on the 21st. On December 24th, I believe I have it here. I have it here because what we're not going to do. The first actual lawsuit was filed by Stephanie Jones against Baldoni on December 24th, 2024. So Blake Lively did not file a lawsuit until the 31st, but Stephanie Jones sued Baldoni, Justin Baldoni, on December 24th. We don't know if they accepted the case. We know for sure that Justin Baldoni didn't respond. We know for sure all the facts and evidence wasn't in. We know for sure all of this. So then you're telling me 11 days later, when she files this lawsuit with no investigation, nothing done at all, that they gave her an immediate right to sue notice from CRD before she filed her lawsuit in court? She violates California law. She violates the CRD complaint. She violates the procedure. She goes outside of the proper channels, which we've seen all along. She thinks she's above the law. She's above the rules. She's above having to do what us peasants have to do. The normal channels that you're supposed to follow and that are readily available to you. Because she's had multiple, because I'm going to go over SAG after and if I can get to it in this one or my next one. To me, that CRD complaint is moot. Her being granted any type of protections under it are moot. And I mean, we've already outlined multiple ways that it's moot. But now this, by her filing that lawsuit, she automatically throws out any rights or claims she has of protection under that California law. I am not a lawyer, but they write these things for lay people so that lay people, regular people like you and I, can read this and understand it. And there's lawyers that are involved with this. The state of California is involved with this, and how they write this, how they phrase it, laying it out so it's easily understandable to the average person who may not even have legal representation. So this is my interpretation. And I don't see how she can even attempt to use this now. Again, with all of the things, she does not meet all of these different burdens. The procedures were not done. And now this is what she did. The submission of the intake form will initiate an intake interview with a CRD representative. The CRD representative will evaluate the allegations and determine if a formal complaint can be accepted for investigation. They weren't able to evaluate that in time, that to accept it. It's one thing to file it. It has to be accepted, which it wasn't. So she doesn't have these protections. I'm sorry, guys. I have to keep reiterating it because I know a lot of you are fearful, like me. You know, if you hear some lawyers' interpretations saying that, yeah, he could be in trouble and this, that, and the other. And I understand it. They're just looking at the brief, they're looking what's filed. But it's scary, you know, because most of us are invested in this. We want to see justice in this case. And the idea that she could wiggle out of accountability and get away with doing these things because of some law in California, some new law in California, is obscene. It's grotesque. It's abhorrent. And it's an abomination, the thought of it. So, this is why I want to bring this information to you guys to reassure you. Now, we do have to wait for Bryan Freedman, Justin Baldoni's attorney, to respond legally and for us to be able to comb through that and see those arguments. But I've laid out several, and this is just, this is another layer of it. Okay. So did they accept it? CRD can only investigate violations of certain civil rights laws. While many people believe they were treated unfairly, CRD can only accept cases if one of the laws it enforces may have been violated. If your complaint is not accepted for investigation, it is not because CRD does not believe you were treated unfairly. Rather, it is because your complaint, if proven, will not violate the civil rights laws that CRD enforces. Here are the next steps. If your complaint is accepted for investigation, CRD will prepare a complaint form for your signature. When you return the signed complaint, it will be sent to the person or entity that you believe discriminated against you. Again, we've heard nothing about that. The filing of a complaint does not mean that the CRD has already determined whether there is reasonable cause to believe any laws have been violated. Instead, it means that CRD has preliminarily determined that the allegations are covered by a law that the department enforces. CRD independently investigates and assesses the facts and legal issues in each case. These investigations and assessments include, among other things, reviewing information and evidence from complainants, respondents, witnesses, and other sources. CRD may attempt to resolve complaints through conciliation or by referring the case to CRD's Dispute Resolution Division when appropriate or required by law. CRD uses the facts obtained through the investigation to determine if there is reasonable cause to believe that a law the department enforces has been violated. If not, the case is closed. If there is a reasonable cause, CRD notifies the parties of this determination and may notify them that the department intends to file a lawsuit in court. Where's the lawsuit? Where's the notice to Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios that they're going to be sued by California under CRD? Where is it? If they believed it was substantial enough, where's the lawsuit? Crickets. Okay. Um, it says, okay, notify them of the department intends to file a lawsuit in court. Prior to filing a lawsuit, CRD typically requires the parties to go through mediation to attempt to reach an agreement to resolve the dispute. We know none of this has happened. So before they file a lawsuit, they try to do mediation. Where is that? Where's the mediation? Like none of this is happening. None of this. But she's claiming she's covered under this. So, in the next one, I want to go over SAG-AFTRA and a couple of other things. Guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I want to be a voice of reason, just a regular person who is going through this. And I feel how you feel. I want justice just as much as you do. This is just the thought of this elitist trying to claim that she is a victim and using something that was meant to empower true victims who do not have resources, who do not have power, who really are scared, who, their livelihoods depend on this. This was not meant to protect people making false claims because they didn't get their way, the exact way they wanted to, although they did get their way for the most part. This was not designed for a person with intentional malice to harm the director, the producers of the movie, to threaten sexual harassment if she doesn't get her way, to do a rug pull from these people as she takes over their project because she's too incompetent to produce her own films under her own production company. So make sure you guys subscribe. I have more to come to reassure you. Calm down. We're good. We're going to be okay. All right. So hit the notification bell and I will see you on the next one.